Everyone loves celebrating results, but when a number isn't hit and that week's missed, the month, the quarter, hopefully not the year, we suddenly scramble back to how many calls did the team make, or how many demonstrations were set, and how many meetings are scheduled and have been scheduled. But if you're not tracking activities from day one, then I believe you're already behind. And so I want to break down why activity-based KPIs are essential and how to set them up right. And I'm going to share with you first just a quick story around, or an example around, a prospect that I had come in and have a meeting with me, and how this approach changed the way that he is thinking about his team and how he's going to set them up for success. So the prospect came through as a referral. He was keen to look at ways that he could support his team in developing them and supporting them to create more sales, essentially, which is why most people come and have conversations with us. And he was interested in knowing a little bit more about how we approach it and what we'd be looking for. Now, for everyone we work with, we run a sales audit. It's something we do as a standard. We look at the way that the team are engaging. We look at how they approach sales, what they think of sales, how they explain the business and the service offerings. And one of the questions I always ask is, what's the expectations of you from an activity perspective? Now, if an organization doesn't have activities as part of their KPIs, mainly it comes down to, I don't care how you get there, just hit the number. Now, that worked really well for me because I was very self-motivated. I was very driven. I didn't need to be asked about how many meetings or calls I was doing, because I knew that I needed to do the calls and the outreach and the emails and the LinkedIn to get the meetings. Once I got the meetings, I have to do the nurturing and the adding value to get them to the next point. Now, what happens when we have more seasoned salespeople is that they know what they're doing. So it's left to them. And once you've done a few months, a few quarters where you smash target, all the KPIs and the signs are stopped. They no longer care about how many meetings you have. Now, I have two views on this. I've got one that I believe that everybody, if you're in a sales role, should always be prospecting for new business. And I've got organizations that I work with that have larger, more established teams and more senior people. And they're like, no, I just manage these accounts. Now, that's great, but I still believe that for us to keep sharpening our tools, we need to maintain our approach, our network, our outreach, so that we're always ready, because you never know what is around the corner. So I think that's one side of it. The other side of it is that that's awesome if the goal is just do the number and they've got there. What then happens, and this is what had happened to the prospect that came in to have a meeting with me, was that he'd said that some of the team were not quite hitting, and he had somebody that had just started, or they'd been there for about 6 months, and he was expecting to see results from him. Now, that's awesome. You absolutely should be expecting results. So I asked about the onboarding process, and I asked about what the expectations were set, how they were managed, how they were tracked, and then therefore how we could come back to them. Now, that approach had been, they're a bit more experienced. The focus is on just get the meetings. So not the activities, just get the meetings. Once you've got the meetings, you're going to get the opportunities, and then we'll be able to close something from there. We got to the point, or he'd got to the point at 6 months where there was nothing happening. There was no momentum. There was no success. And so I asked him what was the standard in his business, and then what was the standard in the industry. And it was very mixed. So we don't really have that to lean on. However, what we were able to ascertain and understand was that the way that he'd approached it was great, because it's giving autonomy, and it's allowing them to not be micromanaged, and all those great things that we need to manage as a manager as we're running a business. But the challenge comes that when he's at this moment now, the question, he feels like it's coming down hard. Like he feels like, and so does the salesperson will definitely agree with this, is that he's having to come down harder, and the salesperson feels like he's being come down hard upon. And that's not a fun place for anybody. And if they don't feel that they can add value, or that they're going to be able to generate these results, often that's when we start to see signs of them leaning back and not really leaning forward where we need them to be, or they leave. And we've spent 6 months then getting them to that level. And we're now at a point where we've wasted 6 months if they're going to leave and if they're not going to generate results. So the problem that exists is that if we track only outcome, then we've got a lagging indicator, which is an outcome, and therefore we're not looking at the number, and it's too late to fix an outreach due to poor activity. So we've got lagging indicators, which is revenue and pipeline created. But if we miss that number at the end of the month, or end of the quarter, or end of the 6 month probation period, whatever we're working towards, it's too late to fix the broken outreach or the poor activity. And there's no real visibility other than, do they look busy? Are they out? Are they having conversations? And I know every trick in the book. Like, I have seen it all. I have seen expectations of call time. I've seen people just going through and making calls and hanging up so the call number gets up. I've seen the goal when it's focused around call volumes of them finding numbers that have a voicemail, or there's certain phone numbers out there that you can ring and it just does it on a cycle of repeat. Little do they know that we record the calls and that we can listen to that. I have seen so many ways to dodge the numbers. So there are ways you can do it, but as long as you've got focus on KPIs and metrics, we can then translate that into the kind of phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, and then we focus on the revenue point at the end. And so that's the problem. So that's the problem with only tracking outcomes. And if we look then at why activities matter, we're looking at leading indicators, which are activities. So calls, emails, LinkedIn, connections, meetings booked, networking events. And these activities levels show early if success is on track, if we're going to hit that number. And that's long before the quarter ends. And so if we're managing activity, we're building consistency, we're building great habits, we're building predictability in pipeline generation, and we're having some fun with it. And so when we look at onboarding, so we onboard people as part of our lead development as a service team. And often we have a lot of fun there because often the people that we are training have no experience. So we are going through and teaching them selling, but we're teaching them the industry and we're teaching them the processes. So day 1, week 1, week 2 is just focused on picking up the phone. I just want you to have conversations. So my goal is go speak to 10 people every day. I just want you to get through to 10 people. That's it. Then the next one will then be, okay, I want you to send out this piece of collateral. I want you to get people on this webinar. I want you to book a meeting. So each week, each fortnight, each month, there is a new expectation set, but it's based on the next thing. If we think about, and I use a lot of gym analogies, so apologies if you're not a gymmer, but if we think of, if I go to the gym and I say, go and lift that 100 kg bar and you've never been to the gym, you're not going to be able to lift it. So you stand there and you try and do it. You might hurt your arm, you might hurt your back, you might drop it on your toe. There are all these things that could happen that will just go, no, I'm not doing it. But you keep, and it doesn't matter what you do, like you're not going to get, if you just keep on that 100 kg bar, you're never going to be able to lift it. Whereas if you start on a 10 kg bar and then you go to a 12, 15, whatever increments you need to go up in, you'll eventually get to the point of lifting a 100 kg bar, maybe or maybe not, maybe that's too heavy, but you get where I'm going with this. So if we are starting where we're building up, we'll be able to get to where we want to go. If we go straight for the lift, we're either going to hurt ourselves, we might be able to do it once, but we won't be able to do it on repeat. So the aim here is that we do it in stages. Same thing happens in sales, is that if we want the revenue, we want the meetings, we want the proposals, we've got to start with an outreach. We've got to start with a phone call, we've got to start with an email, LinkedIn, networking, some form of referral. It has to start there. So when we're looking at these activities and when we've got someone that's like, yeah, I'm going to smash it, and they go out and they use their little black book, let's say, they might smash it for the first month, but then they've exhausted all their connections. So what next? How long do we leave it? How long do we allow them to go about their day? And at what point do we look at where they're at? Pipeline's a great indicator, but as we said before, it's a lagging indicator. It's not a leading indicator. So it will show us where it's at. And also how many people's pipelines are real. Like how many people's pipelines are actually 100% accurate. They're just not. And the amount of salespeople I speak to on a weekly basis, and we have this joke, and I say it with jest and with love, is that your pipeline's not real. Like unless you clean out, unless I've looked at it, it's not real. So we want to make sure that we're updating that as well, and that's going to also play a part in terms of, is it real? Is it working? Is it relevant? And so we want to make sure that activities are always there. So as I said earlier, I believe that everyone should have activity KPIs. I think it's really important, but we want to make sure that we're maintaining and managing and creating consistency. And so if we're building activities into our KPIs, we want to track both leading and lagging metrics. So we want to look at calls, conversations, meetings, opportunities, close rates, revenue. We want to have those weekly check-ins and potentially scorecards. Now, every week, you should be having a sales meeting. If you are not, make sure you have one every week. I had a conversation with somebody the other day and they were like, oh, we probably have one every fortnight. And I was like, do it every week. Like, it's so important. And it also means that we can track success. And it's also one to keep each other accountable, because there's going to be weeks where you are really busy and where the team are like, I haven't made any calls, but I closed $1 million. Like, you're going to be pretty happy with that, as will they be. However, if then the next month or the next quarter, they don't hit $1 million again and they're low and they're behind because they've been celebrating for the last 2 weeks, then we have to make sure the KPIs are still there around the leading indicators that are going to help us to make sure that our pipeline is always full. And so if we've got tracking of that, we've got check-ins and we know where it's tracked, and we've got scorecards. Now, we use the EOS system within the business, which includes a scorecard. So the team complete a scorecard every single Friday and we review it together on a Monday. It means that we never go past a week without identifying any challenges if they are there, and we're able to support one another as a team if there is anything that's dropped off. And we also include things like the podcast going live. We include things like content that's being delivered. Everyone has their own scorecard of what's expected and required of them at the activity level stage. If we're focusing on revenue, that would also be in there, but I would still always include the meetings, the prospecting, the outreach. Now, common pushbacks. So we're going to have a couple of, I've written down a couple here, which I've had, because I mean, we've been doing this for a long time. So I've had a couple of pushbacks around, isn't this micromanaging? And, I don't have time for that. What if the quality drops because they're focusing on these calls and they're just ticking a box and doing the numbers? And I trust my team. Like, there are a couple of things that I've had. I mean, I trust my team. Awesome. But it means then that if you trust them, then you'll trust them to do a great job with this as well. If we're talking about micromanaging, I totally agree. I can not agree. I totally see where this is coming from, because it feels like we've gone from do your thing and get there. And if you don't get there, then I'm going to manage you. But what happens then is that you'll be going along doing your thing and you're like, oh, I'm great. And everyone's happy and we're all singing, we're all winning, we're out for drinks on a Friday and it's all great. But then 3-4 weeks later, we miss a month. And then all hell breaks loose and everyone's looking at everything you're doing. You're like, well, I don't track that and I haven't done that and I'm not sure where this is. So it's not micromanaging if there's a really simple format for that to be tracked in. And we're doing it in a place where everybody's doing it. So it's not just one person, it's everyone in the team. And if your quality drops, then you have a training challenge, that you have the ability to support and identify where the challenge is coming from, why the quality has dropped, what's impacted that, because it's not just going to be impacted by the fact you've included some KPIs to generate a few more meetings. That's not going to come from it. But what will come from it is more market awareness. It will come from it a higher level of expectation within the business. And so we want to look at revenue as the reward and the activity as the engine. So we have leads that we're going after or leads that are coming in, and that's the activity. And that's us doing the doing and having the conversations and building the relationships. And then when we get to that point where we're ready to close, that's the reward. So revenue is our reward and activity is the engine. And if we're only managing outcomes, we're simply just playing defense. And if we want to start tracking activities, we need to start now. And if you've got an existing team that's been there for a little while, explain why. Explain why this is important. Bring them on the journey. Don't just tell them what they have to do and expect that they're going to do it. Do it together. Create it in an activity. Do it as part of a kickoff. I mean, July 1st in Australia is the new financial year. There's quarters, there's New Year's, end of years. We can find a time to do it that ties in with updates and bringing them on the journey for the vision and the mission and making sure that our core values still align. There's so much there that we can do of where we can add in our core efforts. And so we want to give ourselves and give our team the chance to coach and course correct and track. And therefore, we're going to reduce the amount of missed targets and missed expectations. And especially if you're running a business or if you're leading a team, all those expectations are on your shoulders. And if you are a salesperson listening to this, welcome. We love you here, but we need to look at it from this perspective. If you don't have targets, I never had KPIs around activities especially in my last role. I was very much go off, do it. You know what you're doing, go and achieve it. But I'm different. Like, this is now what I teach. This is my life and this is what I love. And I love it because it works. And I'm never going to focus just on revenue. I probably focus too heavily on the activities, probably not enough on the revenue side, but I know that the revenue comes from the activities and the efforts put in those early stages. And if we can do that and manage the process from start to finish, the revenue will come. But if we're only managing the outcome, then we are just solely reliant on that piece falling into place, and being able to rectify its course before it's too late is going to be a key part of your success as well.